Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast for August 2nd. We're talking college football, the MAC East Division on today's podcast with Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt from Richmond, Virginia, part of ESPN Richmond's voice from Washington Redskins camp, actually. Mid-Major, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
It's good. We're in the month of August, and that means college football coming up as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, you're right. It's starting this month, man. We got week 0, Florida, Miami kicking it off, I believe, August 24th. Looks like the Florida Gators, -7, pretty much across the board right now. Also the nightcap that night, Arizona and Hawaii. That should be a fun one to kick it off week 0. 2 college football games and a full slate week 1. Guys, if you're interested in FBS, also FCS knowledge, Mid-Major Matt is a great follow at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. He's releasing all kinds of information there. Also, you can follow me at Drew Martin Betts for college football information. We're going to be breaking down every team in the MAC East, so we got some MACtion on today's slate, and the coupon code for the podcast is CFBPOD. That's CFBPOD for $300 off Mid-Major Matt or myself, Drew Martin's college football season. You can also do it for the NFL and college football season combined. That coupon code is CFBPOD at checkout. Mid-Major Matt, let's start off with the Akron Zips. We're going to be going in ABC order. We got first-year head coach Tom Arth. He played at John Carroll, a Division III college in the state of Ohio. That's where his playing career was. Prior head coach experience, Chattanooga, I believe, in the FCS ranks. I know you know the FCS pretty well. We're talking about the Akron Zips here. 4-8 last year, 2-6 in conference. Against the spread, a little bit under 500 here, Mid-Major Matt. Just 5-7 and over-under. Big under-trender here. Akron went 4-8, trending towards the under. What are you thinking for the Zips this year?
Well, the thing for the MAC schools is, first off, as we've done for the other ones, non-conference schedule is important. Plus, packs of road games, because you're not going to see a lot of the MAC schools play any home games out of conference for the most part. So you have to see road travel and weariness and things like that. Is there any look-aheads for their opponents? So you've got a Zips team here that plays at Illinois. They actually do host UAB. They host Troy, and they play at UMass out of conference. When you talk about this team, you talk about Cato Nelson, who is their returning starter at quarterback, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Unfortunately, though, he's also the leading rusher, so that means they're probably going to have to rebuild their backfield. A couple of returning starters at wide receiver. The defense is where the issues could be. They have just 3 returning starters. They also have to find a new punter, a new kicker, and you have the new head coach. I don't exactly see a bright future for Akron. Their total in Vegas is 3.5. or at least in the place that I've seen him so far. You're going to see a trend with the MAC East, a lot of low totals, because this side of the MAC isn't exactly very good.
So low season win totals, correct, Matt?
Yes, you're going to see some 2.5, some 3s, maybe some 4s, and when we get to them, there's really a clear winner when it comes to this side of the division. Akron, unfortunately, will not be one of those teams threatening for a MAC East title.
Yeah, and you start talking about Akron, I mean, looking down at their schedule, they are part of MACtion, as most MAC teams are towards the end of the schedule in November. They got some Tuesday, Wednesday games, so obviously those will be heavy bet games. Interesting to see how they'll be at that point. You know, you mentioned the season win total down there in the 3-ish range, so obviously it's going to be a tough year here for Akron, most likely outside shot at making a bowl bid. Week 1 at Illinois, would you give them any chance for making that competitive, Matt?
Well, Illinois has as many questions as Akron does, but, Illinois, one of those teams that's going to need to get wins however they can. Last year, Illinois opened up with only a 7-point win against a lower Kent State team. So maybe if the number's big enough, I'd have to take a look at it and see. But, I mean, Illinois ain't exactly anything special either.
Yeah, good point. I mean, it's just kind of bad Big Ten versus bad MAC. I don't know, like profile-wise, do you tend to get involved in that type of bet?
I would have to look and see how big the number is. Probably not, because there's going to be so many games on the board that are interesting, especially for a guy like me, who looks at the FBS, FCS games, that if I don't really love something, especially in week 0 and week 1, I can skip it easily.
Well, we got it right here. Sportsmemo odds. Akron, Illinois, 12 noon Eastern time, Saturday, August 31st, the kickoff. Akron at Champaign, Illinois, and the Illini open -15, seeing -16.5 right now. Does that tickle your fancy?
Not really. And obviously, we could look at a total here. Maybe neither team exactly has a good offense. Maybe this is an under type game, but yeah, that's not enough for me to be on either side, I don't think.
All right, let's move down the line here. After the Zips, we got the Bowling Green Falcons, and for any Mac fans out there, we don't mean any disrespect if we're just going right down ABC order. This has nothing to do with the finish. ABC order brings us next to B, and that's the Bowling Green Falcons in Bowling Green, Ohio. We got Scott Loeffler in his first year here. Matt, right off the top of my head, what has this guy done on his resume to earn a head coaching job?
Well, that's the funny thing, and you look at where he's been. He's been at Temple, he's been at Auburn, he's been at Virginia Tech. Most recently, he's been at Boston College, and he's been terrible pretty much everywhere because, in this area, we talk a lot of Virginia Tech football, and the cries were about Scott Loeffler and how boring and how uncreative a play caller he is. And here you're bringing a guy in to a program that, offense hasn't been as much of an issue in the past, but, I don't understand it because it seems like he has nothing on his resume other than just going to a bunch of places and having mediocre offenses.
Absolutely, and that's what I meant. Just right off the top, I mean, hiring a coach here that, in my opinion, has driven every offense that he's ever been in charge of into the ground. I remember him at Auburn, and it wasn't pretty to watch. But either way, Bowling Green 3-9 last year, 5-7 ATS, over under 6-6 trenders from last year. However, first year head coach. 3-9 last year, starting off with an FCS team in Morgan State, not seeing a line out there. Then they head to Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, to take on Kansas State there. Louisiana Tech at Kent State, kind of starting off their MACtion. They also got a trip to South Bend at Notre Dame. That's going to be a rough one here for the Falcons, probably catching a big number there. Outside of that, MAC play down the stretch. They do have some Tuesday and Wednesday games, also a Friday game, so there will be some heavily bet games there in their November slate. But overall, you looking to bet on, fade Bowling Green? Which way you looking?
Well, I think I'm fading them whenever I can. The big question will be in those Kansas State Notre Dame games is, do those two squads have bigger fish to fry the next week? Bowling Green allowed 58 to Oregon last year. They allowed 63 to Georgia Tech. They allowed 45 to Maryland. I mean, this is a terrible defense that only brings back 3 starters. And the other question is, can their offense bounce back after they lost their quarterback to transfer just recently? He's going to West Virginia. Jared Doge or Doji, doesn't matter. He was good. He had some good numbers. He had 27 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions last year. There's a decent wide receiving corps, but we don't know who's going to be under center there. Their win total number's 3. I mean, I hate taking low totals like that, but that one may not even be enough. This one might be a 2 or 1 win team this coming season.
We're talking with Mid-Major Matt at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter, at Drew Martin Bets. Feel free to reach out to me or Matt, see what you want to hear on the podcast going forward, what conferences, what questions you got in college football, anything betting. And guys, the coupon code for $300 off full season service with either Matt or myself, college football, NFL college football combo there, CFB Pod. That's CFB POD at checkout for $300 off full season service throughout the national championship game. No extra charges later. We got the Buffalo Bulls up next, Matt, out of Buffalo, New York, of course. Talking about Scott Leopold, or Lance Leopold here. Go from Scott Loeffler, in my opinion, the worst coach in the MAC, to Lance Leopold, in my opinion, the best coach in the MAC. What he's been able to do here at Buffalo has been pretty impressive. 5 years here, came over from Wisconsin Whitewater, built that into a Division III powerhouse. Buffalo took a chance on him, hiring a Division III coach, and it has paid off. This is a heck of a program here in the MAC in terms of where the programs all rank. This is right there near the top. Can't put too many MAC programs ahead of them. However, this year, Matt, they've lost a lot. The transfer rules here in college football, from my handicapping here, have affected the Buffalo Bulls as much as anybody. I mean, the kids that have graduated and look good doing it off of last year. I know Miami, and I'm talking about the Hurricanes, they come in and plucked a couple. They're losing the quarterback as well. He was a good athlete, not necessarily. I don't think he's going to become anything in the NFL. Just he wasn't accurate enough. But in the college football landscape, I thought he was very good. Starting off with Robert Morris here from the FCS ranks before a big trip at Penn State. I think that they fall back, though, here, Matt. They just lost a little bit too much talent. Lance Leopold, a heck of a coach. I could see him going to a bowl game, but as far as winning the MAC, I think that's kind of a long shot. What are you thinking for the Bulls this year?
I mean, I loved about Buffalo last year. I made so much money off them, and their win total was one of the easiest ones around because they won the game at Temple, they won at Rutgers. They started out. I'm looking here. They were 9-1 last year to start out. The win total I think was 7.5 or 8, so it was in the bag really early. As you said, they've lost a lot. The quarterback position could be Kyle Van Treese. There's a bunch of different options at quarterback. They've got some decent running backs. The offensive line is pretty much intact, but who is he going to throw to, and who are they going to throw to? It's funny because I went to ACC Media Day, and Miami brought KJ Osborne with him, and I got a chance to talk to KJ, and I didn't really care to talk to him much about Miami. I talked to him about how good this Buffalo offense was last year because Anthony Johnson is a pro wide receiver and all these guys. And then you look on the defensive side, just 2 starters back. Khalil Hodge no longer back. You mentioned the Penn State road trip, a road trip to Liberty, which will be tough, a Temple team that's going to want revenge coming to Buffalo after that. This team's win total is 6. I actually came up with 6, so I don't really have a lean here. But, yeah, it's going to be somewhat of a down year for the Buffalo Bulls.
Yeah, I could see that happening as well. 10-4 last year, 9-5 ATS, so they did make a lot of money if you were betting on the Bulls. Also 10-4, trending well towards the over. We got the Kent State Golden Flashes up next, and Sean Lewis in his second year. And what we noticed from his first year is offense, throwing it around, more up-tempo here for Kent State. And, it didn't really show in their over-under, just 5-7 trending towards the under. Really, the talent level all around wasn't there. Woody Barrett, I believe he transferred from Auburn a couple years ago. A great athlete, just not very accurate, Matt. And it really shows, quarterback position, in my opinion, the most important thing, is decision making, but right after that, it's accuracy, and he didn't have much of that last year. So, as far as betting on Kent State, unless he's going to improve his accuracy, I'm not really looking to bet on him. They were just 2-10 last year, so it's tough to get much worse. But still, when you're betting on teams to improve on that, you got to improve at the quarterback position. Not sure if it will happen this year. They start off at Arizona State before they also got Auburn too, so two pretty, and at Wisconsin. Wow, Matt, they're going after those paycheck games this year. The Kent State is, so obviously 3 losses there. Outside of that, what are you thinking here for the Golden Flashes?
Well, and they're another team in this conference. 5 of their first 7, 6 of their first 9 are all on the road, so they're going to be a road-weary team. It's funny because I've bet the under with this team because their offense was pretty putrid at times, and their defense has ugly numbers, but it's because the offense consistently went 3 and out. They switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4 last year, so they had some poor numbers because of that as well. The defense has just a couple starters back, 5 starters back, and Kent State is going to improve from last year. The win total being 4 means that they will improve, but I also do think, all those road games, all those paycheck games, this is probably an under. The problem is when you look at the various win totals, the juice you have to swallow for that under 4 is ridiculous. So you almost maybe want to wait and see if your book flips it to 3.5 because this team could be a 2 or 3 win team in the MAC East.
And, Matt, when you start talking, the smaller conferences, like we're talking right now, the MAC, why do you like betting, let's say, the MAC or Conference USA more so than the SEC or Big Ten?
I just think there's more of an edge that can be had there. Look, the Sportsmemo and Wager Talk have a lot of fantastic college football handicappers that spend a lot more time with those games. I on a Saturday afternoon would much rather watch, Army or Navy on CBS Sports Network or the Conference USA game of the week. I just think there's an angle to be had there. If you do enough research, you'll know what's going on in these conferences. And there's trends that can be found that I think are a little easier to find in those conferences than the SEC because everybody and their mother's betting those conferences. The sports books are a lot sharper when it comes to the games that everybody watches. So therefore, you got to find your angle, and I think it is in the FBS games and even the ones that involve the FCS.
And Matt, when we're talking Kent State here, this is the 7th game of the season. That will be Kent State versus Arizona State. And I'm talking the 7th game of the whole college football season. They're going off Thursday, August 29th, the nightcap of the Thursday slate here. Kent State at Arizona State in Tempe, 25.5 or 26. The Sun Devils laying in week 1. You got any feeling on that week 1 game?
Yeah, for something like that, you have to take a look and see who Arizona State has the next week, because once again, this is one of those games where you kind of want to get out there, you want to go through the motions. They have Sacramento State, so it doesn't really matter there. It's an Arizona State team that's without Manny Wilkins, they're without some other guys. You've got Herm Edwards there in his second year. It's a big number. And we've seen that Kent State has struggled in those bigger games. It's something I'll probably look at, but right now, I kind of want to also see where the market takes this game. Is there going to be people who bet the, Kent State? Is there anybody who's going to bet the Sun Devils? So this might be one of those things that I'll wait until closer to see if there's any line movement either direction.
All right, we're talking with Mid-Major Matt at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. 2 teams left here. Miami of Ohio, the Redhawks. Chuck Martin's 6th year here. We'll remember in 2016 they lost their first 6 games and then won their last 6 games to make a bowl game. And then I believe what pushed Mississippi State to the brink in that bowl game. But really since then, Matt, a 5-7 year and a 6-6 year left out of both bowl seasons. So Chuck Martin kind of built them up, but hasn't been able to take that next step. So kind of question marks here for Miami of Ohio. I don't believe they've named a starter either, so quarterback could be an issue here. 6-6 last year, 8-4 ATS. They did make some money for their backers. 7-5, small trender towards the over. You thinking anything here in Oxford, Ohio?
Well, one of those quarterback potential guys is Brett Gabbert. And if that sounds familiar, he's the brother of Blaine Gabbert, who, of course, we know how his NFL career is going. 4 offensive starters back, 5 defensive starters. You look at the non-conference at Iowa, Tennessee Tech, at Cincinnati, at Ohio State. That's not exactly good. A lot of paycheck games there. They'll have 6 of their first 9 on the road. Another team that's going to be playing a road-heavy slate. Chuck Martin has done some decent things with Miami. Their win total 6. Ironically, I don't think they're going to get to 6, but I'm looking at one sports book. The juice on the under is -190. I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody to take that much. You have to wonder if the book eventually is going to move it down to 5.5. This could be a 4 or 5 win team, and so the under is probably worth a look if you could somehow get a 5.5 with better juice on it.
What book are you talking about there, Matt?
FanDuel Sportsbook has +160 on the over, which if I could make a case for the over, I would totally take it. But I can't find enough wins for the Redhawks, and I'm not telling anybody to take anything -190. So I think I would wait on the total, see if it goes down to 5.5, and then maybe swallow less juice and go for the under.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to say, FanDuel overall I thought did a pretty good job, releasing the numbers. And most of the time they stay away from doing that, because when a sports book does that, goes -190 up towards -200, it really kind of diminishes they won't write as many tickets, and they're pretty much telling the public that they don't want to take any more bets, so they just do that instead of jumping it up a half a game and bringing that back down to say the -125-ish level. So I would always tell my friends, clients, don't bet into that. Don't lay -190, especially for a season-long bet. You're going to tie up 90% more of your money than you can actually win in over a 7-month period. That's just not a smart bet in my opinion, Matt. How do you feel?
Well, it's just like, it's funny because on Twitter I'm making fun of the guy who bet, over $100,000 on the Sixers to make the playoffs, and he's going to make $2,000 back, and he's going to have his money tied up for all that time. I mean, I think that there's a certain, especially on win totals, because you're tying your money up for longer, I think there's a certain amount of juice that I would swallow, and I'm actually looking for the pluses. Now, I can't make a case for 6 wins, even 7 wins for Miami, so I'm not going to touch the +160, but yeah, -190 is nuts. You're never going to go that much when you're tying up your money all the way till December.
Good stuff, Matt. And we got Mid-Major Matt on Twitter from ESPN Richmond. His service is available at sportsmemo.com, and you can take $300 off his college football or his NFL and college football using the coupon code CFBPOD. That's CFBPOD at checkout, no spaces. You can also use that coupon code on myself, Drew Martin. We're both breaking down college football big time, and concentrating on the smaller conferences a lot of the time. I know I do, and Matt does himself. We got Ohio Bobcats to finish it off here, Matt. From Athens, Ohio, Frank Solich in his 15th year here in Athens. Nathan Rourke, He came on somewhat last year. He's a pretty good athlete. At first, he struggled with his accuracy. I do think he improved on that. And I'll tell you, I got Ohio bet as a bet on here, Matt. They start off with Rhode Island, at Pittsburgh, at Marshall. I'll tell you, that September 14th game at Marshall, that will be a big one. And then they host the Ragin' Cajuns from Louisiana before a bye week, and then starting MACtion versus Buffalo. What are you thinking here for 9-4 last year, the Bobcats? What are you thinking for 2019?
Well, there's some value here. The total 7.5, and I think you could see them fall into even 7 wins potentially in conference. You look at all the teams that we've talked about so far. They're way better than Akron. They play them on the road, but it doesn't matter. They're way better than Bowling Green. That's a road game. They're way better than Miami. They're way better than Kent State. And they're probably better than Buffalo, even though it's a road game October 5th. So if you think about that, that's 5 wins right there. They host Western Michigan, who I like Western Michigan, and we'll get into that when we do the MAC West. They host Northern Illinois, who's not as good as they have been in the past, and at Ball State. I mean, they're going to be potentially better than everybody they play in the MAC. They get that free space against Rhode Island in Week 1. Even if they take one of the Marshall, Pittsburgh, and Louisiana games, we're at 8 or 9 wins for Ohio. And they're not even that great. Yes, Nathan Rourke is very good. They've got some decent pieces at wide receiver. They have to rebuild the backfield a little bit. But they don't have to be that great because they're so much better than everybody else in the MAC East and probably in the MAC Conference as a whole.
All right, Matt. So you're liking them over, huh? 7.5?
Yeah, I think that they could get 7 wins potentially in conference, and then with Rhode Island, and then a non-conference slate where they maybe get somebody, one of those other 3. Yeah, I think the over 7.5 for Ohio is worth a look here because the rest of the MAC East is just not good, and that's 5 wins right there.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff on MACtion. We got the coupon code CFBPOD at checkout, $300 off. Matt, what about overall here? You're spending most of your time at Redskins camp?
Yeah, we're doing Redskins training camp for another couple weeks. They are here for another, I think, 6 or 7 practices. Yeah, they are in Richmond, Virginia, so we broadcast live, talk to the players, talk to the media, and do a lot of stuff with the Washington Redskins.
And are they doing 2-a-days there?
Yeah, they do some 2-a-days. They do a morning practice and an afternoon walkthrough. The walkthrough is what you would expect is just guys in shorts and shells and stuff and just doing walkthroughs and stuff, going over plays. I mean, I wouldn't say they're, working hard over both sessions, but it's been very interesting to watch the quarterback battle. They've been shuffling their offensive line because of the Trent Williams holdout situation, and so they're going to be an interesting team to watch and see what happens if they decide to keep Trent Williams or trade him, and how they decide to fix that massive hole in their offensive line.
All right, man. And any big plans here before college football kicks off? A couple weeks away.
As you mentioned earlier, on my Twitter account at MidMajorMatt, I've been doing some nuggets of information for the FCS, FBS games because there's definitely value week 1 in betting on some of these FCS schools to cover against these FBS opponents, and been doing a little bit of tidbits on each game because for something like that, all you have to do is do a little bit of research on the opponents, do a little bit of research on both sides, and you could find an angle in those games. Now, the lines aren't out yet, but it helps to at least be ready when they are. So you could say, all right, well, I like this team up to a certain amount, and if the line is there, then that's what we're going to fire. It's never too early to start doing research for week 1 and week 0 of college football.
Absolutely, man, and that's something that you've done for years. When can we expect the FBS versus FCS for week 1 lines to come out? I mean, it's not very far in advance of the kickoff, correct?
It's not very far in advance. It's probably about, like 3 or 4 weeks or so. But the problem is not every sportsbook has those games. And when they do, some of them release them on Thursdays or Fridays. Some of them try it because they know that if you're betting on those games, they know you have a reason to. And so they don't want to get too much of having too much of an issue with one side or the other because, these things move pretty quick. A line could open up at -14 and go to -10 or -18 really quick. So the books want to reduce the amount of liability that they have, so they'll release it as close to as possible as they can.
Yeah, and the limits are also lower. It's you very rarely can get more than $500, down on an FBS FCS game, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But Matt, anything else you want to throw out there before we shut this down?
No, everything's going well. Baseball's going well right now, and we're getting ready for football. And hopefully you'll join me if you enjoy the Conference USA, the AAC, the Sun Belt, all that good stuff. That's what you'll get when you'll see my selections come college football.
All right, Matt. And about how many selections would you say on average, not written in stone, would you release a week?
Oh, I mean, I'm a 3 to 5 guy on the minimum side. There's weeks where I might have 5 or 6, and then there might be weeks where there's just 1 or 2. But I will provide plenty of information. The only problem will be is you're gonna have to go potentially on like Reddit or one of those websites to try and find the game on TV. But it doesn't matter if it's on TV if it's a winning selection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, never worried about it being on TV or not. And nowadays with ESPN Plus, you can almost get every FBS game. So check that out. It's only $4.99 a month. Definitely recommend it. Also, YouTube TV is something I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on for this football season. How are you consuming the content on a Saturday?
Well, I got the several screens going. The Watch ESPN app. I have 2 separate computers, and I've got the TV going. So, and plus I do some stuff for the Richmond Spiders football team. So some days I'll be in studio and I'll be watching some different stuff, and I will be consuming as much as possible.
All right, at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter, at Drew Martin Bets. Feel free to reach out, guys. Tell us what you're thinking. Any feedback would be appreciated. Best of luck with your bets out there, and we'll talk on Monday with Teddy Covers.